Good morning. My name is Debbie. I'm a grade 9 teacher at Captain Nichola Goddard School in Northwest Calgary. And I'm going to talk to you today about one way that my school is trying to reduce our environmental impact, and that's through the annual Green Commuting Challenge. Before I get into the specifics of the annual Green Commuting Challenge, I wanted to ask you, what does traffic look like around your school in the morning and the afternoon? Maybe some of these pictures look familiar to you. Maybe you sit next to a guy like this in the morning who has really bad road rage because of all the traffic. This picture up here is taken from my school when we first opened 5 years ago and we had a really big traffic problem. This last car in the photo is actually blocking the teacher entrance into the parking lot. So there are so many kids that get a ride to school in my community that it's really difficult if you're running late, which I often am in the morning, to actually get into a parking space and to get into school and to class on time. I don't think traffic has to look like what you saw in the previous slide. Traffic to me should look like kids skateboarding to school, full bike racks, kids walking to school together. And I'm not the only one that thinks traffic doesn't have to look like congestion with motorized vehicles. Here's a couple images from the Seattle Institute for Sustainability. And these images show how we could use space differently if we weren't relying on motorized vehicles for transportation. It doesn't just have to be something that we imagine to change the way that our traffic flows. These are a couple pictures from a city called Zermatt, which is in Switzerland. Zermatt actually doesn't allow personal motorized vehicles. So traffic in Zermatt, Switzerland is people walking, people biking, people cross-country skiing down the streets. So you might be asking yourself, why is this lady talking to me about traffic? I thought this was an environmental talk. When I think of traffic, I don't just think of the annoyingness of traffic. I don't just think of road rage. I also think of air quality and air pollution. That's a big issue that we deal with when we have lots of traffic. I also think of sedentary behaviors. Do you guys recognize what this picture is from? WALL-E. So the humans that were depicted in WALL-E, not the best image of where humanity is going. The filmmakers that made WALL-E, they were trying to send a pretty strong message that if we continue on with the behaviors that we currently have, this might become our reality. So that's what I mean by sedentary behaviors. All of those issues, traffic, air quality, congestion, sedentary behaviors, in my opinion, they're all related to the bigger issue of climate change. And I'm sure that you've heard a lot about climate change. It's in the news. It's probably talked about in your classrooms. Climate change is a really, really, really big issue. We're all being affected by climate change, and we are all contributing to climate change through our actions, our behaviors, and our activities. So often when we think about climate change, we think that's a really big issue. Like, I'm just one person. How is putting my banana peel into a compost going to make any difference with climate change? Well, the students at my school decided that we could make a difference with climate change. We are a small community, but the actions that we take can make a difference. So the students at my school that work with me on the Green Commuting Challenge, we have this idea that we take of think globally and act locally. So think globally, act locally means take big issues that are worldwide, that are bigger than your community, and don't just say, someone else will figure out a solution for that. Figure out a solution for it within your community. Take small steps to make a difference. I want to show you a quick video now that I think really embodies this idea of think globally, act locally.
Here is the story of the great forest that caught on fire. The terrible fire raged and burned. All of the animals were afraid and fled from their homes. The elephant and the tiger, the beaver and the bear all ran, and above them the birds flew in a panic. They huddled at the edge of the forest and watched. All of the creatures gathered, except one. Only Dukduktium, the little hummingbird, would not abandon the forest. Dukduktium flew quickly to the stream. She picked up a single drop of water in her beak. Dukduktium flew back and dropped the water on the fire. Again, she flew to the stream and brought back another drop, and so she continued, back and forth, back and forth. The other animals watched Dukduktium's tiny body fly against the enormous fire, and they were frightened. They called out to the little hummingbird, warning her of the dangers of the smoke and the heat. "What can I do?" sobbed the rabbit. "This fire's much too hot. There's too much smoke," howled the wolf. "My wings will burn. My beak is too small," cried the owl. But the little hummingbird persisted. She flew to and fro, picking up more water and dropping it, bead by bead, onto the burning forest. Finally, the big bear said, "Little Dukduktium, what are you doing?" Without stopping, Dukduktium looked down at all of the animals. She said, "I'm doing what I can."
Okay, so hopefully from that video, you took away the analogy between the fire and climate change. So climate change, like I was saying before, is a big issue that's affecting all of us. It's affecting our homes, it's affecting the way that we live and the way that we're going to live. That fire was destroying the homes of all of those animals. And some of those animals decided that they would flee the fire, but the fire was too big for them to deal with. They had all kinds of excuses for why they wouldn't do anything to stop the fire. The hummingbird, however, decided, yeah, she's small, maybe her contributions aren't going to stop the fire by themselves, but at least she was going to do something about it. And so that's the philosophy that we took at Captain Nichola Goddard School, and we decided we have a really big problem with climate change. We're not helping climate change by driving our kids to school every day, so we're going to create a program so that we can contribute to reducing our environmental impact. So just a little more information about my school. We're a 5 to 9 community school in Northwest Calgary. We've been open for 5 years now, and we have about 900 students. And so if you can imagine 900 students arriving every morning, if every student is getting a ride to school individually, it creates chaos and traffic mayhem. The good thing about the school, well, one of the good things about the school is that it's a community school. So the majority of the students live within a walkable distance, which some of you might disagree, but I think is 2.5 kilometers. That's the farthest distance that any one of our students within the designated area lives. Some other facts about the school, which I've alluded to already, we have a pretty big traffic problem. It's not just annoying to be driving in really bad traffic, it's also really dangerous. People, when they're in traffic, they tend to make not the best decisions. They might pull illegal U-turns, they might drive through crosswalks. We also have a lot of students arriving late to school because they're stuck in a traffic jam, and so they can't get to school on time. So when we created the GCC, or the Green Commuting Challenge, we had a lot of reasons to create this project. We know that we're creating a negative environmental impact by having all of these cars in our neighborhood. We can see that kids are arriving late, kids are grumpy, kids are anxious when they arrive to school because they've been in traffic. And we also decided to do some research, nationally and locally. So we looked at some reports that were put out by Participaction and Active Healthy Kids Canada, and the data wasn't very good. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. We also talked to people in our community to try and figure out Why are people insisting on driving their kids to school? So I'm going to talk about the national data now. If you're not familiar with these research groups, Active Healthy Kids Canada or Participation Canada, they're basically a research organization, and they put together an annual report on the health of youth in Canada every year. So when we looked at the data from 2013 to 2016, there was a definite theme that was coming out in the research. 2013 was kind of the first time that this organization said, we're really inactive, so physical activity, Canadian youth got a D-. I don't think you'd want to show that to your parents on your report card. Active transportation, we got a D. So active transportation, if you're not sure what that means, it means walking or biking or skateboarding to school, basically not using a passive mode of transportation, which is riding in a motorized vehicle. So the reason why we're getting a D- and a D for physical activity and active transportation is because we're driving our kids everywhere. I'm not going to ask how many of you got a ride to school today. I'm going to assume that you all biked or walked, and you can just keep that to yourselves. So the next year, this report decided to compare Canadian levels to other countries, and the results were, again, not good. We got a D- in overall physical activity, a D in a new category, sedentary behaviors, which I talked about before, and an F in active transportation. The next year, the results were pretty similar, and the following year, they were similar again. What I want to point out in this image here is this diagram right here, and this is supposed to be the amount of time or the proportion that you are active, that you are sleeping, that you are being inactive. The average high school age Canadian should be spending 2 hours in a sedentary mode, including screen time. And if you can see here, the average high school Canadian student spends 8.2 hours being sedentary. So on average, we are spending 4 times more hours being sedentary and not being active than what is the guideline at a national level. So obviously we have some problems. We have problems. We're not using active transportation, we're not being physically active, we're contributing to climate change, but we're not really doing anything about it. So why is it that we all can recognize that we have a problem, but we're not making any changes? We came up with a few ideas at the school. First off, our society has what we call a culture of convenience. Culture of convenience is like using a one-time use water bottle, using a one-time use coffee cup. It's easy, and the economy has made it cheap for us to use those kinds of products. Culture of convenience also means it's kind of sprinkling outside, so I'm going to get a ride, even though I live only 3 blocks away from my school. And over time, when we start doing these habits over and over and over again, we stop thinking about them and we stop understanding why we're making these decisions. They become what we call idle habits. So things that we do without really thinking about them. In my community, there's also a perception of safety. So a lot of parents say they don't want their kids to walk to school because it's not safe. I've even heard parents say, it's not safe to walk to school because there are too many cars on the road, so I'm going to drive my child to school. So if you think about that, it kind of makes no sense. But that's what people tell themselves, and that's how they rationalize driving their kids to school. So instead of me telling you these examples of what people say about why they drive their kids to school, I'm going to let some people in New Jersey tell you why they drive their kids to school.
I love my kids. I would never let them walk.
I'd like to let my child walk, but other parents would say I'm nuts.
It's common sense. Biking is dangerous.
No kids walk to school in this town.
Bicyclists are crazy. They shouldn't even be allowed on the road.
Oh yeah, I walked to school as a child, but I'm a much better mother than my mother was.
It's always faster to drive my kids to school. Come on! We're gonna be late! Thank you.
My daughter's Nichola's afraid to walk outside because I've explained to her that there's really bad people out there.
I don't let my children play in the front yard. Why would I let them walk to school?
My kids can't walk to school. Their backpacks are too heavy.
I'd let my child bike to school if there were a bike rack.
I care about the safety of my kids, so I won't let them walk to school.
My kids can't walk to school. They have instruments to carry.
Hi, Mr. Sanchez.
Hi, girls.
Bicycling is inherently dangerous.
But the school is a half a mile away. I would never let my children walk that far.
But the school's a quarter mile away. I would never let my child walk that far.
The school's 4 blocks away. I would never let my child walk that far.
I would let my children walk to school if there were nice sidewalks.
On TV, most criminals are strangers, and you know they base those shows on real life.
I would let my kids walk to school if there were more crossing guards.
I would let my children walk to school, but that would mean they'd be unsupervised for like a quarter of a mile.
The world's a very different place than when I grew up. You know, with the internet and all, there's pedophiles everywhere.
I would never let my kids walk to school. It would stress me out too much. Come on, let's go! Yeah, we're on our way.
I'd let my child walk to school, but it's way too cold. But it's way too hot outside. I might get sweaty. Let my child walk to school in this wind? No.
That last guy was my favorite. He has an excuse for every weather condition. You don't want to get sweaty when you're walking to school, I guess. So we know why people don't want to let their kids walk to school. We know why some students don't want to walk or bike to school. And all of that contributes to this greater global issue of climate change. So the students at my school that are part of the Green Commuting Challenge, we took this global issue of climate change and culture of convenience, and we tackled it at a local level within our school. So we developed the Green Commuting Challenge, and the Green Commuting Challenge has 3 goals. Goal number 1 is to increase our daily physical activity because, as you saw from that data, it doesn't look good. We wanted to reduce our vehicular traffic around the school so that it was safer. And we wanted to reduce, most importantly, we wanted to reduce our environmental impact by reducing our reliance on motorized vehicles. So what is the Green Commuting Challenge? It's currently running right now. It started about 3 weeks ago this year. Every day, we encourage students to walk, bike, skateboard, carpool, use drop zones to get to school. Basically anything except driving individually in a car. We have a group of GCC leadership students, and they track every student's green commutes every day. It's a big job. We have 900 students in the school, so they work really hard to make sure that they track how often students are green commuting and how far they're green commuting. At the end of the challenge, we give away prizes to top green commuting homerooms, as well as top green commuting individual students. So our program has changed over the course of the time it's been running. In 2013, when we started, it was just an individual program, and our participation was okay. We needed to get students to understand the importance of green commuting in terms of their environmental impact and in terms of helping the community. In 2014, we had a lot more participation because we addressed some of the safety concerns that parents had, and we introduced Green Commuting Hubs, which are meetup spots throughout the community where students can get together in the morning and then walk or bike to school together. In 2015 and 2016, we started drop zones and car-free days. So a drop zone is where parents might drive to 3 blocks away from the school and let their kids walk the rest of the way. And car-free day is kind of how it sounds. We encourage everybody to be car-free that day. So even the staff are car-free that day. We have an empty parking lot, and we give away prizes for the top homeroom that's green commuting that day. So in terms of our participation in 2013, like I said, we struggled to get students to participate. It didn't work great the first year that we started. We only had 14% of our student body participating. However, by last year, we had almost 70% of our student body participating. And a lot of that had to do with us building up a culture of understanding what our impact is on the environment and understanding that we can take a global issue and we can do something about it together as a community. By 2016, in that year alone, we green commuted 45,000 kilometers as a school. So I'm almost done with my presentation, but I want to leave you with a few thoughts. So I've talked about environmental impact through air quality and how it's being caused by increased levels of traffic. We've talked about sedentary behaviors and how we need to be more active. We're not leading the healthy lifestyles that we should be leading, and active transportation is the easiest way to increase our levels of physical activity every day. All of those issues relate to climate change, which we know is a big issue to tackle, and we have to do something about it. This planet, this is our home. We don't have any other options. And so if you think back to the video that I showed you at the very beginning with the hummingbird, we have a couple choices. If you think about the fire that was burning, that fire was destroying those animals' homes. Climate change is eventually going to destroy this planet, and we are to blame. Our actions are contributing to climate change. So the two choices that you have are you can run away from the fire and you can make excuses for why you're not able to help, why you're not able to make a change. Or you can be like the hummingbird and you can say, I'm going to figure out what I can do, and I'm going to do that well. I'm going to do what I can. So I'm going to leave you with this question. What will you do? Thank you for your attention.